What's happening, team? Start recording. Dun, dun, dun. What are you missing here? Hello, day two for the sync. Day 2 for the win. The 7-day sync course. Yesterday we had the foundation. That was a bug. Get out of here, bug. Day 2. Get out of here, bug. Day 2, we have the engine. All right, so what is my intention for today, for this lovely, wonderful Tuesday morning? You know, today I am reclaiming my power. I will unlock the tension in my hips to allow my primary movers to drive me forward, rather than letting old habits pull me back. I am focusing on shifting my pelvis from a place of stress and tilt into a place of neutral strength. So the day 1 den mindset for today is intentional inhibition. Growth isn't always about adding more or pushing harder. Sometimes it's about letting go of the tension that is holding you back. You're learning to stop fighting your own body by turning off the dimmer switches that have kept your glutes in the dark. So the focus for the body today on the engine is the pelvic alignment and hips. Most people live in an anterior tilt, pelvic tilt, due to sitting disease, due to the sitting disease cycle. So anterior, posterior, anterior, posterior. So anterior, so you kind of think you have that little hike in your back, your low back, from sitting down all day. So this keeps the psoas locked in a shortened state, which neurologically inhibits the gluteus max. Today, we inhibit the overacting hip flexors to activate the engine of the body, the glutes, the powerhouse, the largest muscle on your body. And these wonderful glutes back there. All right. So I worked with I put down the instructions for the the specialist app. All right, so we have, so day 2, the warm-up, the 0 to 5 minutes, 3D movement warm-up. Yesterday we had the controlled articular rotations for the ankle. Today we have the controlled articular rotations for the hip. Okay, so you're gonna be in a slow controlled position, about 45 seconds per side, and you're gonna be in a quadruped position. Systematically articulate the hip through its full available range of motion. Available. Remember, whenever you're working with a joint or any stretches of some sort, you don't want to go through pain. You want to have, a slight discomfort in the sense of, wow, I've been sitting all day, my back is killing me. When I go for the hamstring stretch, I'm going to feel it. So when you want to make sure, when you're working with the protocol here, is to ease into it. Always ease into it. So you can go through the full range of motion for the hip. You're going to be in a quadruped position. So maintain a stable torso, isolating movement of the hip joint capsule. Now with articulating rotations for the hip, you can be standing and kind of doing like a standing fire hydrant, so to speak, or drawing a circle with your knee. You can be in all fours and doing the fire hydrant style to it with the hip extension, flexion, and rotation to the leg that is being worked on, or to the hip that's being worked on. Now this is still part of the warm-up, dynamic lunge with overhead reach and torso twist. Stepping in a controlled lunge, reach arms overhead to lengthen the anterior chain. Anterior chain is the front. Then rotate the torso towards the lead leg. So if I'm stepping with a solid front lunge with my left leg, I'm going to raise my hands up, the shoulder flexion, and then rotate towards that left leg, and then come back in. Do the best you can to keep that body upright. Then we have glute bridges, light activation. Tempo, we have 2 up, 0-second hold at the top, 2 seconds down, and then 2 seconds at the bottom. So gently lift, so on your back, gently lift. Gently lift, where am I going here? Yeah, so you're gonna be lying supine, oh no, sorry. Sorry, I had lost my program here. Gently lift the hips by engaging the glutes. Avoid overextension of the lumbar spine. You don't want to feel this in your low back. You definitely want to either, perhaps you can have your feet a little further out, having your feet hip width apart, have your toes dorsiflexed or toes towards the ceiling, so you're resting onto your heels, and then lift up with your squeezing the glutes, bringing your belly button towards the ceiling for that glute bridge. Now we have the main performance block, pelvic neurological reset circuit. Execute each exercise with precision. The objective is neutral activation and inhibition. I need some water here in this early morning. Well, not early, but morning. Not maximal output. Complete 2 rounds of the circuit. So again, we have the glute bridge, but we're actually going to add a hold. So we're going to go for the hold. So initiate the lift by driving through the heels and actively squeezing the glutes like we just previously did. Now achieve full hip extension without lumbar hyperextension. So when you hyperextend that back or the low back lumbar. At the peak, consciously engage your glutes for a full 3-second hold. So really squeeze the glutes up at the top. Subtly tucking the tailbone to reinforce posterior pelvic tilt. Feel the reciprocal release in your hip flexors. Anterior tilt, posterior tilt. So even when you do a kneeling hip flexor stretch, you want to posterior tilt the hips so you can feel more of the front of the hip joint. And then we have supine psoas march, pelvic stabilization focus. So you're going to line your back again, supine, knees bent, feet flat. Slowly lift one knee towards your chest. So basically you kind of want to think of a couple options you can do with this one. So as you're on your back, you're going to do the full glute bridge. Then you get to a alternating knee march while keeping the stable leg up into the air. Okay, that's one option. That's a little easier. Oh, well, for working with clients, that's a little easier. Or you can be fully laying on your back, both feet, knees bent, feet flat on the floor. Grab one knee, lift it towards your chest, and hold that single leg for a single leg glute bridge. Okay, you do that one and alternating sides as you go through. So onto your back, supine, either bridge fully up, then maintain that position. So when you maintain that position, that's most likely what we're kind of aiming for here. The one I'm talking about, the second one, is more of a regression. So when you hit that glute bridge and you hit that march, kind of stay up there. Now your pelvis, as you go for a single leg work, your pelvis may shift. We don't want to shift. You want to keep it in line. Then we have side plank hip abduction for glute medius activation. Okay, so establish a rigid side plank, maintaining a straight line from head to heels. Consciously drive the top leg upwards using the glute medius. Glute medius is the top back pocket of your glute. Preventing any rotation or dip in the torso. Control the return to start position, emphasizing lateral pelvic stability. Now with the side plank, you can either go onto your elbows, straight arm. You can have the bottom knee bent as you work with the top leg with the abduction. Abduction is taking the joint away from the body, and adduction is bringing it back to the midline of the body. Now with the side plank, what I usually see with clients and also people, general population gym goers, when you are in that side plank, you don't want your head down. You want, if you want a dowel rod, you want to have your third eye, sternum, and pelvic floor into a straight line. Do the best you can with this one. You don't want your head, if I'm doing my side plank left, this is my left elbow coming out. I don't want my head down and I don't want my hips down. I want to bring everything, all my torso up towards the ceiling. Okay? And of course you have that knees bent if you want to. You can have Knees bent on the bottom leg for support. You can have your feet stacked or staggered for that abduction for both sides for the side plank. Then we have our bird dog, contralateral glute core integration and pelvic neutrality. From a quadruped position, all fours, or I like to call it the bulldog position, bulldog, extend one arm forward and the opposite leg backward, maintaining a completely still and a neutral torso. Another one here too. So like I know I was talking with a client yesterday, one of the members here, and we were talking about the front plank. Now with the front plank, back in the day, we used to get a dowel rod and put it on the base of my head, mid back, shoulder blades or scap, and then have it on our low back, and then we'll hold that in that plank position. Or you want to think you have a hot cup of coffee on your mid back and make sure that coffee doesn't spill. Now, what we were talking about for what I was referring to for this specific front plank, if you feel it in your low back, you might want to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle and really concave your bring your mid back towards the ceiling. Now, that is only if you are feeling it in your low back, because when we do a front plank, we don't want our hips sagging and creating that little curvature in the low back and the lumbar spine. We want a neutral spine or flat. They say flat back, but the spine is naturally curving. But anyways, yeah. So you want to make sure that you have a good solid back. Okay. So another thing too is protraction, retraction of the scapula when you're doing your front plank. As long as your low back doesn't feel it and your core is working, you can always go onto your knees for that front plank. This is just coaching key from yesterday. But for the bird dog, so all fours in the bulldog position. Make sure you maintain that neutral spine. Have your head come up, your head down, chin down. Make sure you want a good solid lines with your bulldog. And then of course opposite knee and elbow kicking straight out. Now another thing too, which I've seen in this position for the bulldog, is when you kick straight back, or pointing dog. You know my favorite movie of all time, Up. You know, with Doug, when he goes squirrel and he goes for that pointing dog. So when you kick back with that opposite leg, make sure it's straight back through. You don't want to have an arch in your low back. You don't want to be a bow and arrow. We don't want Katniss for this one, for the bow and arrow. We want a solid straight line like Doug in the movie Up, my favorite movie. And make sure it's straight there, straight down the middle, best you can. Activate that glute. Another thing is having that shoulder flexion, straight down the middle. I don't want to have shoulder coming in, but break down that center line, best you can for that pointing dog. And of course, this is for pelvic neutrality, okay? Keeping your pelvic nice and stable. Then we have the cool down, cool down and corrective. Integrate, release, and reinforcement. Now we have a kneeling hip flexor stretch. Again, I was talking about this. So you want to have a posterior tilt with your hip. Split kneeling. You can have one leg on a bench and the other leg on the floor. Or you can use a couch stretch for this one. So in a tall kneeling lunge, gently tuck the tailbone under your body, actively engaging the glute of the stretching leg, This subtle posterior is backside, pelvic tilt will deepen the stretch in the front of the hip, maintaining an upright posture while breathing deeply. Of course, both sides, 45 seconds per side on this hip flexor split kneeling stretch. Again, anterior posterior tilt for that hip to engage or to actively pinpoint that hip flexor for that stretch. Because if I have an anterior tilt, like we were sitting down all day, I'm not going to feel it in my hip flexor, and you might just try to jam in there to get that stretch. We don't want that. Now we have spinal segmental roll down. From a standing position, slowly initiate movement from the head, sequentially articulating each vertebrae as you come down for a forward fold towards the floor. Focus on controlled, deliberate movement through the spinal segments. Reverse this process, rebuilding the spine one segment at a time back to an upright posture, reinforcing kinesthetic awareness. So as you go through, really feel that body, have that mind-body connection to what you are working with. So if you do, remember, if we're sitting down all day, every 30 minutes, 35 minutes, go for that stretch. Do the spinal forward fold roll. And of course, really feel that low back and just do slight rotations or slight twists of the torso. And again, diaphragmatic breathing. We usually have shallow breathing throughout the day. So for this one here, you want to go for posterior rib expansion and core integration. So lie supine. Supine is just onto your back. So this is so if you do like a supinated bicep curl, supinated, semi-pronated for a hammer grip, and pronated, palm facing down. So lie supine with knees bent, feet flat. Place hands on your lower ribs. Inhale deeply, feeling your abs and lower ribs expand outwards and, crucially, downwards into the floor. Exhale fully, gentle, come on, right? I gotta speak here. Gently engaging the deep core musculature to reinforce a neutral pelvic position. Focus on calming the nervous system and solidifying the natural state. That is your day 2 sync. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry if I'm getting you guys dizzy on that one. Day 2 sync, we have it, locked down. Yesterday was the ankle, today was the hip. Be mindful and, of course, do your intentions for the day. Again, I am reclaiming my power. I will unlock the tension in my hips and to allow my primary movers to drive me forward rather than letting old habits pull me back. I am focusing on shifting my pelvis from a place of stress and tilt into a place of neutral strength. The day 1 dead mindset for today is intentional inhibition. Growth isn't always about adding more or pushing harder. Sometimes it's about letting go of the tension that is holding you back. You are learning. This cold has been with me for like 3 weeks. You are learning to stop fighting your own body by turning off the dimmer switches that have kept your glutes in the dark. So your dimmer switches, just like how we have, stage right, stage left. So if my dimmer switch on my hips, or picture this light is full blast, it's my glutes right there are not activated. So when I have my posture, my lights fire up my glutes and my muscle fibers fire up correctly. And we do this by making sure that we have our anterior pelvic tilt and we address it and how our posture is, how our feet, ankle, our toes, our vertebrae, how we control our movement throughout the day. And of course, to apply our mobility and our stretching. And that is day 2, the engine. All right. All right, so just a little quick question. So why is one hip tighter than the other? Generally speaking, general question, this is often a pelvic rotation issue. We aren't just stretching, we are recentering the pelvis in a 3D space. So being in that bulldog position, going for your controlled articular rotations, this will kind of address your hip as a ball and socket joint, just like your shoulder. And you will really want, as you go for that range of motion with that hip, you really want to get in there and kind of think of greasing the limbs or greasing the car. So movement is a medicine for creating change in a person's physical, emotional, and mental states, by Carol Welch. Again, movement is a medicine for creating change in a person's physical, emotional, and mental states. From using the 3D analysis for that full body assessment, I know my right hip has always been bugging me. It's always been bugging me with the roundhouse kicks and side kicks, and taking the assessment and looking at the results on the PDF, and then seeing the actual breakdown of my right hip. So I started bringing back the large band and mini bands with me to the gym where I rent space at, and I really started doing internal rotation and external rotation of the hip by the ankle, and because that was a huge issue. And of course, working with range of motions and doing circles with the large band around my foot as a pregame and also postgame of my workout. And when I was walking back home, and I just felt my right hip, it just felt so much looser. I know you don't really expect to feel anything really immediate or that fast, but I felt the difference, and I just felt how I was walking, and it just felt great. It felt great. So movement is medicine. So making sure that we're not stiff and stuck and limited by our inability to put the joint in a full range of motion. Right? So the why is this important? Most members suffer from sitting disease. This keeps the psoas in a shortened hypertonic state. The dimmer switch is stuck on high. Oh, my analogy, the dimmer switch is off, but this one is high. So it's really focusing on that psoas being a hypertonic state, which pulls the pelvis into an anterior tilt. This shuts off the glutes. So we use the 21-minute block I just went through to inhibit the psoas and activate the engine, the glutes. So my lower back is always tight. Just mentioning this. Should I stretch it? Not necessarily. This is a case-by-case basis, of course, but your lower back is likely tight because it's doing the work. Your lower back is doing the work of your glutes is failing to do. So your lower back is taking over the steering wheel of what the body mechanics should be doing, but the glutes instead. It's taking over the glutes. So we don't stretch the back, we wake up the hips. We don't stretch the back, we wake up the hips. So a part of your checklist of going through like, okay, my lower back is bugging me, what can I do? I can do mobility, I can do wake up the hips, I can do perhaps light stretching, see how that feels. But in this recommendation, in the sense of sitting disease, most likely that's where we're kind of aiming for here to counteract this inhibition is to wake up the hips. Okay, so movement is medicine. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and hopefully you guys too, the day one den on the school group by Fighter Fit X. Hope you guys like that one. So yeah, be careful on the side plank. Make sure your hips are properly aligned. Definitely go through the pointing dog, bird dog, quadruped or bulldog position. And yeah, get your hip cars in there. All right, bye. Pelvic tilt.